and welcome to Black All Year, the podcast where I, Steph Edusei, hold conversations that centre Black experiences and demand meaningful change all year round. In this episode, I'm joined by Nikki Brooker for a deeply honest conversation about anti-racism, allyship, and the inner work needed to challenge white supremacy. We talk about unlearning, showing up, and the power of truth, love, and accountability in the journey towards justice. Nikki Brooker is a lifelong advocate for equity, inclusion, and the transformative power of young people's voices. From co-founding the UK Youth Parliament as a teenager to shaping youth-led mental health services and anti-racist education, Nikki has spent her career building spaces where community voice drives real change. As the anti-racist mum, she supports white people, especially parents, to unlearn their conditioning and take meaningful, sustained action for racial justice. Her work is rooted in honesty, compassion, and the belief that change starts within. Hi, Nikki. I'm really just delighted that you could join me today. And just when we were chatting before we started recording, I didn't realise that I don't know if I've actually followed you on TikTok, but I've definitely seen you on TikTok before. So I'm even more delighted because I love the stuff that you put out on TikTok. So Nikki, anti-racist mums. So for anybody that's listening and can't see this, you are a white woman. Why are you kind of pushing for people to be anti-racist?
So I am a white woman. I would say that I am also, the word melanemic would be more appropriate. if we're wanting to deconstruct racism in society, our language is really important, but I'll probably come to that later. But yeah, I am, for all intents and purposes, for the willfully ignorant white British people, I'm a white British person. And I feel like we're conditioned, white British people, to see ourselves as superior through the use of the term white. You know, it puts us on a pedestal, gives us hierarchy. And then we are, by this "I'm not racist" statement that so many people make, they believe that gives them like some sort of neutrality in situations. But actually, through a process of unlearning my conditioning, I've realised that we have to be proactively anti-racist. This "I'm not racist" is just complicity in racism. You're just biting your tongue, you're staying silent, you're not wanting to enter any level of discomfort. And that is a British society, you know, stiff upper lip, all that nonsense. That is such a level, it's so ingrained in our conditioning. And so, yeah, I do a radio show and I prefix my radio show. It's called Uncomfortable Conversations. And I say, you will get uncomfortable. If you're a white person, a melanemic person listening to this show, I will make you uncomfortable. And if I do not make you uncomfortable, I'm not really doing my job, because you need to get uncomfortable. We need discomfort to grow. We're not going to grow. We're not going to get better. We're not going to be better humans if we do not go through this discomfort and unlearn our conditioning. And yeah, it all started because my daughter was racially abused by children that she grew up with. Like, she would sit on their sofa drinking milk with them as a baby, as a little toddler. And then the boys started calling her the N-word, and mum was defending them.
What age was she?
She was 11, and one of them was nearly 12, and the other one was 10. And then the mum screamed at me in the street, called me an N-word lover, that I was never going to stop people saying the N-word, that I was ignorant if I thought that anyone was ever going to, you know, stop saying the N-word. I needed to accept that my daughter was not white and accept the consequences of her not being white.
And that's a really, I mean, that whole language there, but it kind of proves the point, doesn't it? The kids don't get this, they're not born with it, they learn it, and that's been learned in the home and surroundings. But that whole thing of, you need to accept that your daughter is not white. Why do you need to accept anything? It's not an illness. It's not there's nothing wrong with being not white. But then, and because of that, you just have to accept the abuse. I mean, what?
Yeah, and then one of her, like a mutual friend, told me that even me raising this because I was really annoyed. We lost all our circle of friends because we were part of a tight group of friends. Like, we'd go camping every year and stuff, and everyone took this woman and her kids' side, and one of them said to me, "But you're drawing attention to the color of your daughter's skin by even having this conversation, and you're causing the trauma. You are traumatizing your daughter by having this conversation." And it's like, my daughter said at the time, like, "What, don't she think I look at my arm? Like, what, how, or I look in the mirror?"
I do find it funny actually when people talk about that. Oh, you keep talking about, and it makes it really obvious what color you are, because unlike some other types of minoritization, it's pretty obvious. It's not something that we can, or in fact want to hide. So yeah, you're highlighting the fact that your daughter's skin is a different color. It kind of highlights itself.
Well, I've had this conversation with people from the LGBTQ plus community on some of my posts, because I had a guy that was like, I identify as gay, and, like, I don't keep going on about it. If people want to abuse me, they'll abuse me. And I was like, but you can hide that. Nobody needs to know that you're gay unless you tell somebody that you're gay. Like, my daughter can't hide. What's she gonna, like, she cannot hide her skin color. No, it's our biggest organ. And why shouldn't skin color be celebrated? Why do we need these hierarchies? That is,
Yeah, I've told this story before on the podcast, but there was a woman who I was on the charity board with, who was a white woman, and it was a Black-led women's charity, and we did a workshop and training for the board. And she'd been involved in this organisation for probably 20 plus years. And I dropped her off at home after the training, and she said, Steph, she said, there was something that was said then. It's the first time it's occurred to me. She said, I can choose to disclose whether I'm a lesbian or not based on, do I feel safe? You don't have that choice. And I think that's the thing. And I thought it was really, it was, for me, it was profound coming from her, because she's a massive, massive advocate and a real anti-racist worker and things. And yet it really rocked her, that sudden realization of, you don't have a choice as to whether you can be safe to share a fundamental part of who you are. So yeah. So you had this kind of awful racism towards your daughter, and actually then kind of by association towards you.
Yeah, I got ostracized from the whole group. I was a trustee and did safeguarding for a charity, which I got pushed out of because they all, literally the whole community decided that I was, an extremist anti-racist. Like, I was doing safeguarding training for a community theatre, and they kept dropping the pen on the floor saying, "Oh, is she going to get annoyed because the pen's black?" And like, just being like really,
wow.
really pathetically like making these digs. And like, I was talking about FGM, as because within safeguarding training, that is a requirement. And then one of the guys, the volunteers, he stood up and was like, "This is a Christian country. Why are we even talking about FGM? They shouldn't even be in this country if that's a risk." And it's like, I'm trying to deliver safeguarding training to you, and you're being so disrespectful. So in the end, I had, like, sometimes there's some battles you have to pick. And for me, I was finding that was, that was doing my mental health and emotional well-being no good. And then I have a friend who's a rapper, and she said to me, "Read about white women's tears, Nikki, because it's all very good you crying to me that your daughter's being racially abused and you've got no friends, and but you're a white woman. What are you going to do about it?" And then once you've read that White Women's Tears, and you've read White Fragility and Nice Racism, come back to me and tell me whether you're actually going to do anything about it. And then I spent a lot of time, unlearning my conditioning, reading, studying. I watched a lot of Jane Elliott videos.
Yeah, Jane Elliott's amazing.
She's bloody amazing. She's such an inspiration. And then, I went back to my rapper friend, and I said to her, "I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up anti-racist mums." And it was just going to be an Instagram account trying to encourage other white women to be with melanaceous children like my daughter to grow a movement. But you know what? Actually, it's really hard to find people that are willing to do the work, that are willing to be proactively anti-racist, that look like me. it is this, I'm not racist, but I'm already, you know, the individual believes them to be the exception. So every single melanemic person I encounter, they already think they're doing enough to be not racist, but they're not. They're just sitting in shame in their head. They're not actually, what steps are you actually taking to be anti-racist? Who are you challenging? Are you challenging people when they, you know, incorrectly label refugees and asylum seekers illegals? So I did do a TikTok video about that, and I think I stuck it on Insta as well, about the traffic light, how there should be a traffic light system, like a badge system that white people, and an app, and it was a bit of satire really, but the point to it was like, if you're a white supremacist or you don't believe in systemic racism, grab a red badge before you leave the door. Like, people from global majority communities need to know you're really unsafe. But then if you're amber or green, you cannot self-select those. Only somebody from a global majority background can tell you whether you're amber or green, because we are always going to think we're green as white people, because we are conditioned to think that we are superior and neutral and all these other things, that we're programmed by society to think that we are the exception. So, you know, green would be a global majority person saying, yeah, I feel really safe in your presence. You don't do things to make me feel unsafe. You don't gaslight me when I'm raising issues with you or experiences with you. And amber would be like, you're getting started on your anti-racist journey.
And I think there's something as well about that. So there's so many people that go, I'm a good person, I'm a nice person, I'm kind, I volunteer, I, you know, give money to charity, I can't be racist. But what I've found is it's really interesting then with that type of person, how quickly the racial slur will come out when something bad happens. So either you'll directly annoy them or upset them, or something happens in society. It's almost like, well, how many steps or how many phrases or how many minutes need to pass before you say something about the color of the skin? And it can be really, really quick. And that's when you go, oh, there it is. It was just under the surface. There it is.
We met a lady in a supermarket like that, and she said, she was talking to my daughter, and then she said to me, you know what, the thing is, I find around here is that people, because I've lived here, she's from a global majority background, and she said, because she's lived in this town for a number of years, people say to her, but you know, when we're slagging off the migrants and the illegals, we're not talking about you. You're the all right one.
You've been here for years. We're not talking about you. Yeah.
And she said, you know, but it's the same, isn't it? It is. And I said, yeah, that's what I'm trying to break through with people, with melanemic white people, to show like that it doesn't matter where you sit on the spectrum of racism. We are all racist. It's like, I suppose it's like a spectrum, really. You know, you're either at one end, you're a white supremacist and you're completely, you do believe that you're superior because of your skin tone. And then there's the those that are the deniers of systemic racism. And then there's the I'm not racist people at the other end of the spectrum that are not quite anti-racist and need to do the next step. But maybe I'll do a graphic about that.
So how would you describe being anti-racist then?
I think you have to, things that I do to help myself be anti-racist is whenever I'm watching, and I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I'm watching a TV program, I play, and I've made it's available to download from my website actually, Stereotype Bingo, to spot how we're being programmed by whatever TV show, news, film you're watching to stereotype people. So there will be the trope of the angry black woman. There will be the trope of the, oppressed Muslim woman, and there's so many things, I was watching a series and just spent the whole series was brainwashing you to think that, Israel's good, Palestine's bad, because it's an American series.
One of the ones that I hate is the normally overweight, jolly, strong black woman. There's always this like incredible, and she's always the life and soul of the party, but she's just, and it's the kind of the weight that puts on us to be strong all the time,
a bit happy
and and it's like, no, I know some amazing black women who are lovely, positive, happy people, but they get angry at times and they get frustrated and they get sad. But you only ever see kind of, it's a two-dimensional element, isn't it, that you see all the time? Yeah.
So yeah, that would be like, and I do like, so I do it, yeah, like while everyone watches something, I'm always like, oh, there's the stereotype. That's what they're trying to program us to do, to think about this group of people. And you know, they do it with people with disabilities as well. You know, it's not, but it's about, because for a long time I thought I was really inclusive because I've been a youth worker for 30 years. So it was taking my being inclusive to the next level, because you can be, I think a lot, and that's what, again, with this exceptionalism with a lot of like people that look like me is, you know, they're inclusive, they're a teacher, they're a youth worker, they work in the community, they think they're inclusive because they tick the boxes of inclusion, but they're not deprogramming their bias. And so that's what I spend a lot of time doing. I listen to a lot of music from usually hip-hop, underground hip-hop, from different people from different cultures. A lot of First Nations Australians. I have a real affinity with their battle and the apartheid that they live within Australia. I feel that the world turns a blind eye. You know, that they are the biggest, highest number of incarcerated people on the planet. There is, and our government, or not government, but our head of state, our king, is still overseeing the incarceration and extraction of resources from their land. And you know, surely as British subjects, we should be doing more to help them get their land back. Ultimately, you know, I don't believe that as a colony, and Australia should exist in its current form. Really, it's we need to decolonize and enable the Aboriginal nations, First Nations nations, to have their land back.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because in New Zealand, and New Zealand is far from perfect, but they've gone some distance to kind of trying to correct some of the wrongs that were done to the Maori people. Whereas in Australia, there's just nothing. There's almost no acknowledgement that there was any harm done there at all. It's quite appalling, really. Just that it reminds me of First Nation Americans as well. It's that kind of, oh well, you know,
yeah.
What are you talking about? You're fine. And not acknowledging the fact that things like high level of alcoholism, women and girls still disappearing to this day, has anything to do with what happened and the kind of systemic racism that there still is in those places. So yeah, really quite shocking. And I meant to ask you before, but we kind of went off. How is your daughter doing after all of that? Because that's an awful experience for a child that young to go through.
It kind of got worse actually after so then that happened. The first instance with the boys happened just before the riots started. Then we had the summer of the riots. And then she started secondary school. And then there was a few little minor incidents at secondary school where, you know, I'm quite a fiery person. She didn't want to be embarrassed starting secondary school. So we were leaving things, but then she came home during Black History Month and was quite upset. And she said to me, Mummy, like, I thought Black History Month was about teaching us Black British history. So why are we learning about cowboys and cowgirls in 1920s America? And I was like, oh, can I now go and talk to the school? So I went and talked to the school, and the head teacher was like, well, you know, not really any such thing as Black British history, is there?
Oh my goodness me.
I told him he was a fragile white male. He got really condescending and really didn't like me pointing that out to him. He told me I needed to see secondary mental health and that I was overreacting, having a breakdown. There was no need for them to teach Black British history because there was only 2% of the school population were from a global majority background. At which point I pointed out, well, we've had a summer full of riots, so perhaps those 98% white British children need to learn about white privilege, white fragility, and I called it unconscious bias, but I don't really believe it's unconscious bias anymore. At the time, I was referring to it as unconscious bias, but it's not.
Might have been for the kids.
But like they need to unlearn their conditioning. And he was not interested.
I mean, I have this a little bit because I live in the northeast of England, and the amount of, for years I used to work in the NHS, the amount of times people would say, oh, well, we don't really need to worry about that because we haven't got many Black people here. And it was kind of, actually, there are more Black and brown people in the northeast of England than you think there are. But even if there were only 3, that's more reason to pay attention to it rather than less, because there's no community there to support those people. So yeah, I would have completely lost my temper at that point.
Well, there I tried to talk to him about weathering, and he told me that was a pie in the sky concept and didn't exist.
Wow.
At which point I said, well, you obviously, you're denying that weathering exists. So therefore you have just proven to me you cannot physically or emotionally safeguard my daughter. I will therefore be taking her off role and home educating her. So I asked for her. It took them an hour to return her to me. She had to be interviewed by 3 different teachers to check that I was not having a breakdown. How was mummy over the weekend? How was mummy when you left the house this morning? Because, they're fragile white people and they can't. So we left, and on the way out the school, we met a teenager, and she said, like, where are you going? She was year 11, and she'd been called the N-word, and had sworn at some boys in defense of being called the N-word, and she'd been suspended for 5 days. So when I said,
but the boys got nothing.
no punishment for the boys.
Wow.
So when I said, I'm removing my daughter to home educate her, she said, that is the best thing you can do. I've been at this school, since year 7 for the last 5 years. It's been like hell every day. And then proceeded to tell us about how, these boys had been tormenting her by calling her the N-word, and she told them to F off, and then she'd got suspended for 5 days, and she was just returning from that incident to sign in from that incident of suspension, and that she thought I was doing the best thing for my daughter, and told my daughter, your mum obviously really loves you, and then we carried on leaving. And
then people say racism doesn't really exist in Britain. That's appalling. That's absolutely appalling.
I've heard it from so many, so since then setting up, what's ended up happening is I've ended up doing a lot of, like, I suppose pro bono or like informal support to families of global majority children that are being abused. Like, there was a boy, he was beaten up by like 16 white boys, global majority lad, and his dad and I were talking, and he ended up having to move schools because the school were just like, it's not racially motivated, even though you can hear on the video them calling him racially motivated or racially abusive terms, and then reporting it to the police. The police recorded it as goaded into defending himself. Like, they wouldn't even record it as a hate crime. And so this is like, it's so systemic. Then there was a girl that I was supporting. She was being bullied every day at school, and then took a craft knife to school with her, not even with a blade, like a gluing craft knife. Young woman wore a hijab and had a Palestine badge, and was being tormented by these girls. And then the school decided to search her bag randomly, and then she gets suspended for having an offensive weapon. It wasn't even an offensive weapon. So, like, having these conversations, and then ended up, emotionally supporting her mum and her, and saying, you're allowed to be angry at this because you've been treated appallingly. Like, this is all, this is racially motivated. And I think for people from global majority backgrounds, when they're being, like, it's almost like, as a melanemic person, I kind of, me believing them validates them a bit more. So few people with my complexion actually, when they say this is their experience, they get gaslit all the time.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. I think it is that gaslighting. So you start to think, am I just being overly sensitive? Am I reading too much into it? And the amount of times that we excuse the behavior that is shown towards us because we're told that we're overreacting. So to have somebody like you go, no, that's wrong, it must really make a massive impact for some people. Yeah.
So one of the things I'm trying to do is I'm gonna have a meeting with a lady that runs a platform for collating data for bullying and harassment at work, and we're in talks to have an element of that embedded within my website.
Right.
So that, because I get a lot of women now through my TikToks commenting or DMing me to say, Nikki, like, it's amazing, particularly when I do stuff about workplace harassment and microaggressions in the workplace, so that this can track. So you can, as a global majority employee, if you were experiencing workplace bullying, you would be able to go onto my website and log it, and then either I can advocate for you to your workplace, or you can use it to build up evidence via my website of the fact that this is going on, and then use the Equalities Act to get treated, to get, some kind of change, or the host organization that has the data and does all the security of the data, they can advocate. But we're in talks to get this set up, because actually it's about accountability, actually, isn't it? At the end of the day, otherwise, why do we, on my radio show, I quite often say the Equalities Act is basically toilet roll, isn't it? It's sitting on a dusty shelf and it's not being used because it's never been implemented, because of people that look like me, because we never do the work. We don't reflect. We don't change our behavior. Like I've had years and years of encouraging professionals and setting up reflective practice sessions for youth workers and practitioners to make our practice better. But at what point, let's do it for the rest of humanity. Let's do it for people that are not in community-based roles, because we should be change. Some guy was saying, why should we change our language? Why should we even use the term global majority on TikTok? It's like, because words have power.
Oh, huge amount of power. And I know that because I call us the minoritized global majority, because although we are the biggest, most people in the world are not white, and that is news to some white people.
Yeah.
On TikTok, I have had some people saying, oh, what? You mean white people? You're saying white people are the minority? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course you are. Did you really think the majority of the world was white? But we are minoritized, even though we're the majority. And actually, I say that white people are the prioritized global minority, because that's what's happened. You've been given priority for centuries now. And it really winds people up. They really hate it. And they hate it because they're not taking priority. They're not in that top spot. So, but I do want to find some time to talk about anti-racist mums and the work that you're doing. So you've got a website, and we'll share the link to that in the show notes. But tell us about what's next for anti-racist mums, what you're doing.
So I have an accountability program, because it's all about accountability. I have a couple of different accountability programs. So I have a one that I offer schools, which is a 3-tiered level of accountability. So it's about supporting the staff, supporting the students that are global majority students to know, and their parents, providing them with like a resource for holding the school accountable for safeguarding their children. And it is about teaching the white children, or the melanemic children, about their conditioning, how to recognize that they're permanently conditioned, and to become better versions, more inclusive versions of themselves. I have a 4-week program for children that, because racist abuse within schools is has gone up, and exclusions and suspensions for racist incidents have gone up exponentially over the last few years. So there's a 4-week program, rather than, because the government doesn't want you to keep it, if you're at school, keep excluding people. That's not good for your figures. So rather than you exclude or suspend people, I've got a 4-week program that I offer schools to help those young people become less racist. And then there's an accountability membership element for parents and professionals to stay engaged in the work of unlearning, because it's not a destination being an anti-racist. It's an ongoing journey. So yeah, I have an Anti-Racist Mums has an accountability membership, low-cost accountability membership for white professionals and parents to sign up to, so that we can keep each other in check and we can keep doing the work to unlearn. I have an offer that I have, a coaching offer that I have for parents and professionals to do that. So for professionals that, to one-to-one coaching, you can book in chunks of 3, so that because there's no point in one at a time, it's gonna, so and then I do family coaching for families of up to 4 people. But if you're a bigger family than 4, that's up for discussion. But it doesn't really work to do. I've done a lot of emotional wellbeing work over the years with children and young people. And, if they're in a toxic home that is perpetuating the racist narrative, unlearning their conditioning, they're going to play lip service to it while they're on a call with me. So the family coaching is about a whole family approach to the family working together to unlearn their conditioning, change the language, change how they respond to news articles, or even body language. Like you're sitting on the bus and some black boys get on the bus and the mum suddenly clutches her purse or her shopping, And then what's that teaching those children? It's this fear, overcoming the fear-based narrative. I'm working on a podcast myself. We've got or coming up with a podcast myself. My daughter and I want to do a podcast, start a podcast together that is about about being a family, melanaceous family with a melanemic mum. And for me, it's this, what we were saying about language is really important. So I've got one of my low-cost resources is a glossary of decolonial language, and I really want to foster change in how we use words, because words have so much power. Like a lot of people will say that I'm a hippie for saying this, but the whole words are spells, and I learned that from my daughter's father's mum. Like the power of words. And I think that as a melanemic white person, we're not taught as children, or we've lost that spiritual connection to a lot of energy of the universe. And her grandma would teach me and would be very mindful about the language that she used. And I found that again with First Nations women and communities in Australia when I was there talking to them. And I think that that's something that, as part of our unlearning process as melanemic white people, we need to really reconnect with how we use words and language, because we're being manipulated all the time by the words that the government and the media are using, and how they co-opt words, like woke.
Yeah.
It's a black word. It's words. It originates within the black community, and it's now being co-opted because of the media. And
it's being used as a insult, isn't it?
Yeah, as a derogatory term. And
they're trying anyway. Whenever anybody calls me woke, I just thank them.
So do I. Yeah. But it's that. Yeah. So it is, and that is why. So yeah, throughout my radio show, because I do a monthly radio show, I will interchange between white and melanemic to try. I want to get people thinking about, we need to change the way that we use language, because if we continuously refer to ourselves as white, because we're not white, the radio is white, printer paper's white, we're not white, but it creates, because of the symbolism attached to that term, it creates the hierarchy of humans, which we don't need. We do not need. And I don't refer, I referred to the people, the rot at the top, or the parasites. I think that we shouldn't be giving them any credit for destroying society. No, they want to be referred to as a word beginning with E. I will not use that word to describe them, because they're not. They're parasites. They're a drain on humanity. And yeah, so it's about language, isn't it, as well?
Yeah. And the power of words to lift and to suppress is just huge. And you're right, we do completely underestimate. And I love the fact that it's that idea of learning from other cultures, stuff that we've actually forgotten.
Yeah.
I've released a book recently, and it's about leadership, but one of the things that I talk about in there is how one of the lessons in that book reflects other cultures' approach to leadership, which I didn't know at the time, but actually I've probably taken that from my own cultural heritage. But we elevate white Western culture, don't we, as being it's the way to be. So I love that.
But and this really winds me up, actually, that whole, because I had a guy on TikTok that was telling me that that other countries should be grateful for colonialism, and I'm like, what are you actually talking about? Well, they would have nothing if it. Well, they would have the beautiful, amazing cultures like that.
and this whole idea of education started with colonialism is just absolute. What they don't realize, and they should read things like David Olusoga's book, the fact that education was taken from Africa to Europe, and then centuries later, when they came with guns, they then said, "Oh, here's an education system." And actually, the UK education system is not a particularly good education system. And unfortunately, a lot of African countries, because they were colonies, have adopted that education system, and it's not particularly great.
And the judiciary as well, isn't it? Is modelled on.
It is, yeah.
And they still wear the stupid bloody white wig.
I know. But we will share all of that information and links, because I'm sure people will be interested. We'll share all of that in the show notes. And I mean, Nikki, we could probably do like a 4-hour program, but we're going to have to draw it to a close. But thank you so much. All power to you. I will definitely, if I'm not already following you, I will be following you as of about 10 minutes from now on TikTok. And if I can do anything to help you, let me know.
Oh, thank you. Have a great afternoon.
I hope you've enjoyed that episode of Black All Year. It would be great if you could subscribe and review, because not only will it make sure that you get the content, but it'll help other people to find it too. Take care.